There's no present for poor people like you. Just go back home." We couldn't understand the words coming out of my sister-in-law, Caitlin's, mouth. Caitlin has been voicing her complaints up until now. It seems she hid the gift meant for her daughter, Mary. The reason she had been in the next room was apparently to hide the gift at the last minute. Caitlin snatched the present Mary had prepared right out of her hands with force. After inspecting the present from various angles, she threw it on the floor. "Such a meager thing can't possibly be a gift. Anyone who would give such a thing isn't family. Go back home." It appears she was displeased because it wasn't the brand she specified. On the floor, earrings that Mary had chosen one by one were scattered. The children who participated in the gift exchange picked them up, but Mary, frozen, seemed unable to comprehend what was happening right in front of her. Gradually realizing the situation, tears quickly filled Mary's eyes. She's just a 13-year-old middle school student. It's no wonder she ended up crying. Watching Mary like this, Caitlin had a triumphant look on her face. Arriving late, Zella also entered the room and laughed at Mary, who was in tears. Taking advantage of this moment, Caitlin continued to hurl insults at us. However, that didn't last long. I am Michelle. While working a part-time job, I raise my only daughter, Mary, and am about to enter my 50s. Mary was born when I was 35, and she turns 13 this year. I have a husband named Kendrick, who is 1 year older than me, but Mary is not Kendrick's biological daughter. Before marrying Kendrick, I was married to another man. Mary is the daughter from that previous marriage. Blessed with a loving daughter, the three of us lived happily, but that life did not last long. My former husband died in a traffic accident. At that time, Mary was just 3 years old. She barely remembers her biological father. I was engulfed in grief immediately after his death, but I couldn't afford to lose Mary as well. As a single mother, I resolved to raise Mary. To do that, I needed money. Since then, I've spent my days juggling childcare and part-time jobs. I met Kendrick at work, 2 years after making my decision, in the spring. Being a single mother, I sometimes inconvenienced my colleagues with tasks like picking up from kindergarten. Kendrick supported me attentively during those times. Attracted to his kindness, we began dating. Initially, Mary was nervous around Kendrick, her first encounter with an adult male. He understood her nervousness and approached her not as a dad, but as a friend. Mary must have felt Kendrick's kindness. Gradually, Mary warmed up to him. I remember vividly how delighted she looked when she started calling Kendrick Dad. While dating, Kendrick revealed to me that he was infertile. I consider Mary my real daughter. Even though Michelle and I can't have children together, I still want to live with Michelle and Mary. For Kendrick, the inability to have children must have been a significant insecurity. However, the fact that he showered Mary with love was unchanged. When Mary fell ill, he rushed to take care of her. For me, Kendrick's infertility was never a reason to part ways. Seeing him treat Mary as his own daughter, I had no choice but to stay with him. He was not only indulgent but also strict when necessary. It was clear he genuinely cared for Mary. We had a serious talk and decided to cherish the happiness we had right in front of us. After opening up, Kendrick became even more caring towards Mary and me. We started living together, and when Mary was 8, we got married. Kendrick's father, John, warmly welcomed our marriage. John adores Mary as if she were his blood-related granddaughter. Mary has also grown fond of John, and we have managed to build a good relationship with him. However, Kendrick's mother, Zella, saw me as a woman who seduced her son for money. Whenever we visited Kendrick's parents, she blamed me for everything. Whether it was missing dishes or a speck of dust, it was always my fault. The list goes on. And it wasn't just Zella who berated me. Kendrick has an older sister named Caitlin, who is 2 years older than him. Caitlin is married and a working mother of 3 daughters, ranging from high school to middle school age. The nieces are all calm in nature, much like their uncle Alex. Since she lived about a 10-minute walk from her in-laws, she often brought the kids over to play. We only go back for summer vacations or Christmas vacations since it takes us about 3 hours by car using the highway. So, we do see Caitlin and her family from time to time. Caitlin is the type who isn't satisfied unless she's number one. She harasses me along with Zella, and she always has to show off her latest designer bag. We're not that well off, so this is the best we can do. My family lives in Chicago, and we're currently in Washington, which is quite a distance away. We don't communicate often, so financial support is not something we can count on. I work a part-time job too, but I don't have the luxury to afford branded goods. Knowing this, she still flaunts it. Caitlin works a part-time job as well, but I guess Alex makes a good income. You can't use off-the-rack clothes and bags. You need to have proper branded ones. Today's outfit cost me about $10,000 in total. Caitlin's children were wearing off-the-rack clothes, so it seems she's satisfied as long as she can dress herself up. I'd rather spend money on making Mary happier than on myself. Our ways of thinking are quite different. I've been getting sick of Zella and Caitlin. It seems Mary doesn't have a very good impression of Zella and Caitlin either. I'm watching videos in my room, and she hides whenever she sees them. I feel sorry for involving Mary in adult conflicts, even though she's still a child. Both of them always have something to say, don't they? I'm sorry. It's always been like this since the past. Remember, Dad and I are always on Michelle's side. Especially John. It seems he has never thought much of Caitlin's bragging since the past. Whenever something happens, John steps in to mediate. Kendrick also seems to have no fond memories of Caitlin from when they were younger, like when she would eat his favorite snacks. Both have grown up, and since Kendrick moved out, he hasn't visited home much. So, there hasn't been much interaction until recently. After marrying me, he would only show up to meet his grandchildren. I hardly ever see him talking with Caitlin. However, Mary and Caitlin's children get along well. It would be a shame to separate the children because of adult circumstances. With the cooperation of Kendrick and John, Caitlin and I have maintained a reasonable distance. Fortunately, she hasn't come to our house so far. If I just endure it a few times a year when we meet, everything will be fine. Once Mary grows up, we'll probably see each other less. Just a little more patience. I'm okay. I reassure Kendrick and myself with these words. One day, when the town began to light up with Christmas decorations, we received a message about a Christmas party at the in-laws. John, being considerate, invited Mary. It seems Caitlin is the organizer, but John is also helping out. Naturally, Mary wants to go. Mary is only 13 years old. Sending her alone on a 3-hour one-way trip to her grandparents, when she's not even used to taking the school bus, is too risky. On the day of the party, it's Christmas vacation, and both Kendrick and I are off work. We decided to take Mary to the in-laws for the party. Christmas parties usually mean exchanging gifts. We can't afford anything too expensive, but we decided to prepare a gift. Upon hearing this, Caitlin went ahead and specified the gift herself. A gift list was sent along with the invitation. Looking through it, there were items like luxury brand necklaces and cosmetics, things you wouldn't think children would use. Each and every item was over $500. What does she think children's gift exchanges are? I've never seen Caitlin's children wearing branded items. So, this list is probably not what the children want, but what she wants for herself. We ignored the instructions and let Mary choose the gift herself. Mary couldn't decide in one shopping trip, so we went multiple times to buy the present. Each time, the options increased, and I watched Mary happily making her choices. Eventually, she settled on earrings and an eraser, totaling $30 for the gift. Mary was counting down the days to the Christmas party. It's a special occasion, after all. To avoid any disputes, we decided to be as careful as possible. Then the day arrived. Caitlin's children had stayed over the night before to decorate. The luxurious Christmas cake and roast turkey were apparently handmade by John, who used to be a chef. They wanted the children to enjoy themselves, so the adults tried not to gather too much in the room. The in-laws' house has a dining room next to the living room, with a small room at the back that used to be Kendrick's childhood room. While the Christmas party was happening in the living room, the adults were swapping drinks in the dining room. Alex couldn't attend because he was busy with work. You could hear the lively voices from the living room in the dining area. The adults were making small talk, sounding cheerful. Caitlin probably didn't want to see me. She was in the room when there were luxurious meals, but now she's nowhere to be found. I didn't want to confront her either, so it worked out. As the party was winding down, it was time for the gift exchange. "I want you to take my present," Mary said, holding out the gifts to her cousins with both hands. They seemed happy to accept the presents. It was Caitlin who had made the list of gifts, not her daughters. It's a gift meant for children. Letting the actual children choose was the right decision. The exchange was done in an old-fashioned way, with music playing, and whoever had the item when the music stopped would keep it. Caitlin's children were puzzled because there weren't enough presents, even though they had prepared one each. I was roped into searching for the missing present. Half-eaten snacks and toys used for playing were scattered on the floor. It must have gotten lost somewhere. However, searching the room, one gift was still missing. Could it have been accidentally thrown away? Just then, Caitlin, who had been out of sight, walked into the living room. Seeing Mary, Caitlin suddenly started yelling, "There's no present for a poor person. Just go home." We couldn't understand what Caitlin was saying. She was voicing her grievances until now. Apparently, Caitlin had hidden the present meant for Mary. She had been in the next room until now, presumably to hide the gift at the last minute. Caitlin forcefully took the present from Mary's hands. After inspecting the present from various angles, she threw it on the floor. "Such a poor thing can't possibly be a present. Someone who gives this isn't family. Go home." She must have been upset it wasn't the branded item she had specified. Earrings selected by Mary were scattered on the floor. The children were picking them up, but Mary, seemingly unable to comprehend what had happened, froze. Tears began to form in Mary's eyes as she slowly grasped the situation. She's only a 13-year-old middle schooler. It's understandable she would start to cry. Seeing this, Caitlin had a look of triumph. Zella entered the room late and laughed at Mary, who was in tears. Taking advantage of the situation, Caitlin continued to berate us. But it didn't last long. "You're the one who should leave, Caitlin." John rushed in from the dining room next door. While wiping Mary's tears, he started yelling at Caitlin. John is usually mild-mannered, and I've never seen him angry or irritated. But now, he was shouting with a look that could scare the devil himself. Not just Caitlin, but Zella, who had been mocking along with her, was silenced. "Dad, did you hear everything? I was the only one looking for the present with the children. John is not good with alcohol, so they must have thought he wasn't watching. John and Kendrick had seen everything. In fact, only Zella and Caitlin were drinking alcohol. John and Kendrick were drinking non-alcoholic beer. While I was scrambling to find the present, Kendrick had been telling John that Caitlin had demanded brand name items. Even John thought that was unacceptable and had been waiting for the right moment. But that wasn't all. Caitlin's children started to comfort Mary. "What are you doing? Poverty is contagious." Caitlin frantically tried to persuade the children to stay away from Mary with a panicked voice. The children ignored Caitlin's persuasion. In a panic, Zella also tried to call the children back. But they all faced Mary, not turning back at all, as if their actions were showing that what the two were doing was wrong. It seemed Caitlin and Zella had thought the children would always be on their side. Seeing the children's actions, Caitlin and Zella were flustered. "When will you stop wanting brand name things? You're just a working mother now." To my surprise, after moving the children to another room, John shared a story from the past. It turns out Caitlin had always had a spending problem. In her student days, Caitlin started working at a girls' bar wanting money to play. Unlike convenience store part-time jobs, the girls' bar paid well. It's understandable for a girl fresh out of high school to get carried away with so much money. Moreover, the job required dressing up in brand name dresses and bags. Caitlin would work at the girls' bar, buy the latest brand name bags, and increase her shifts when she ran out of money. This lifestyle continued for 3 years. However, she quit in her 3rd year of university because John found out she was working at the girls' bar. Caitlin tried to keep working in secret, but she gave up when threatened with being kicked out of the house. John said that was the only time he had ever shouted at Caitlin. After quitting, she worked as a supermarket cashier and eventually became an office worker at a general company, where she met and married Alex, then quit her job. Even after quitting, she couldn't escape the lifestyle of buying brand name items. Alex frequently scolded her for it. "If you can't buy it yourself, it means it's not suitable for you. Don't make others buy it for you." The gifts she demanded from us were all things Caitlin wanted to buy. "What's wrong with that? Isn't that what presents are for?" Caitlin retorted, gasping for breath. "Caitlin, you're living on your part-time income now, right? How can you afford so many brand name items?" I'm just increasing my shifts. I bought everything with my own part-time income." She hesitated a bit, as if hit where it hurts. John didn't miss that hesitation. "Then what's this?" John pulled out his mobile phone and showed us a screen. It displayed the total amount of debt from a private financial institution. "Why do you have this?" "I saw it in Zella's room. There's no better proof than this." Caitlin fell silent and looked down. The atmosphere was no longer that of a Christmas party. That day ended with us being told we were better off leaving. For the children, it probably became a Christmas they'd rather forget. We bought Mary's favorite stuffed animal on the way home and decided to have a family party of our own. 3 months later, John contacted us. Caitlin had gotten a divorce. Alex hadn't known about the debts. He panicked and conducted a personal investigation after learning about them through John. Shockingly, Caitlin had canceled the children's educational insurance and spent all the money on brand name items. Alex couldn't forgive her and chose divorce. Caitlin, taking Zella with her, stormed into Alex's parents' house. However, that backfired, and she was disowned. Since that Christmas, the children had also distanced themselves from Caitlin. Fortunately, they were all over 15 and chose to live with their father, Alex. Caitlin is now facing claims for alimony and child support in the divorce proceedings from Alex. Although the payments are in arrears, Alex isn't struggling with childcare finances because of his earnings. However, raising 3 children alone as a man is quite challenging. He had been busy with work even when he was married, often leaving the house empty. That's why he couldn't attend the Christmas party. Should I help with everyone's studies? I'm currently researching online courses at work, so it would be perfect. Kendrick has always loved children. His nieces were fond of him too, and he would sometimes teach them when they were at his in-laws. He owed it to them for defending Mary. Officially requested by Alex, Kendrick began to occasionally oversee his niece's studies online. Even though it's been half a year since the divorce, I still get snide messages from Caitlin every now and then. On the other hand, Caitlin continued to blame Kendrick and her nieces. I raised them. What ungrateful daughters! I raised them with kindness. They'll surely regret this. Divorce is out of the question. After the divorce, Caitlin apparently returned to her parents' home. Since then, Zella has always sided with Caitlin, no matter what, despite her volatile temper. John began to question Zella's behavior. Zella, who used to scold Caitlin, is now affirming everything. The current Zella would certainly seem odd to anyone. When John started investigating Zella secretly, he found decisive evidence. John asked us to check it out, so we visited his house for the first time since the Christmas party. Kendrick and I had been keeping our distance from his house. Since John regularly visited our home, there was no reason for us to go there. The two always went shopping at the same time. When we arrived, they were out. The living room, once lavishly decorated, now had only John's dishes laid out, giving off a melancholic vibe. Going through them, we found debts listed under John's name. There was no need or reason for John to be in debt. As we finished going through everything, we heard the front door open. They must have seen our shoes. The two rushed into the room in a panic. Why are you two here? Breathing heavily, Caitlin confronted Kendrick. Caitlin, what is this? I don't remember taking out any loans. John calmly separated Caitlin from Kendrick and presented her with the papers. It was the debt details borrowed under John's name because Caitlin could no longer borrow under her own. And isn't this under Zella's name? Not only Caitlin, but Zella had also been borrowing money. It appears Zella had been spending the savings meant for their old age on luxuries with Caitlin. John was a saver, almost considering saving as a hobby. He had accumulated about $600,000 for a peaceful retirement from his savings during his working years. But the two had spent it all in 3 years. Not enough, they repeatedly took out loans, inflating their debt to $730,000. We had no choice. The stress of not paying child support was piling up. Exactly. It's all the fault of the person who divorced us. Don't shift the blame. The responsibility lies with you two for not controlling your desires. Caitlin and Zella continued with their unseemly excuses, blaming Alex, the daughters, John. Where did they get the idea to blame others? John refuted all their arguments with sound reasoning, and finally, the two fell silent. As if to end everything, John presented the divorce papers. Marrying you was the shame of my life. Caitlin is not my daughter. Seeing the divorce papers filled out in John's section, Zella began to apologize frantically. While crying, Zella started a deep apology. Yet, Caitlin just looked on, offering no apology. Zella started urging Caitlin to apologize too, but Caitlin, unwilling to apologize, argued back. With nothing left to say, John left the scene. What are you doing standing around? Go bring Dad back. After John left, Caitlin began to panic. Everything had been just talk, and she hadn't expected any action. Now you're trying to ingratiate yourselves with us? After everything you've done. Please, don't involve us anymore. Staying any longer wouldn't do any good. We also left the in-laws' house. That night, while relaxing in the living room, the doorbell rang. It was past 10 p.m. An unreasonable time for a visitor. At the door stood Caitlin. Kendrick said he would handle it, so I watched from the living room. What do you want at this hour? For a brother without seeds, you're awfully cheeky. Just let me in already. Apparently, after we left, Caitlin and Zella had an unprecedented fight. And Caitlin was kicked out of the house. She tried going to Alex's, but was, of course, turned away. Unwilling to spend money on a hotel, she came to our place intending to crash. This is a joke. Leave now or I'm calling the police. We're family, aren't we? Just let me in already. Ignoring Kendrick's warnings, she continued to cause a scene loudly. Even when warned about disturbing the neighbors, Caitlin only became more agitated. With no sign of her leaving, we did as we said and called the police to have Caitlin removed. Why should you two be happy? I will never forgive you. As she was being taken away by the police, she spat out those parting words. Kendrick, Alex, and I had all tried to reach out to Caitlin at first. She had destroyed all of that herself. Approaching 50, Caitlin likely won't change her personality now. Having lost money and family, she can't accept that she's reached a point of no return. Later, we received a thank you call from John, along with a report on the two. Apparently, Zella and Caitlin had been blaming each other. Eventually, they became estranged from each other. Both burdened with debts in their own names, they're living in poverty. Zella paid the compensation money for the divorce lawsuit to John immediately, but she didn't have the means to come up with such a large sum instantly. She must have taken on new debts to make the repayment. Fortunately, the debts taken out in John's name could be covered by the compensation money. John has rented a new place and is working as a taxi driver, saving for his retirement. His granddaughters continue to visit him, even after the divorce. Despite everything, they still cherish John, who is filled with gratitude for their affection. And on another Christmas day, at John's new home, Mary and the children exchanged presents. They had chosen themselves. No brand name items, but presents that brought smiles to the children's faces are the best. Do branded goods and large sums of money that are not suitable for you change a person's personality so much? This incident made me rethink the value of money. Mary still spends time happily with her cousins, silently ensuring they don't follow in Caitlin's footsteps.